Welcome to episode 68 of Rubbish Talk with myself. I was going to say myself, Jane Bond. That's a good start to the new format, Jane, eh?
Yeah, ideally. I'm Jane Bond. You're Alasdair Meldrum.
I'll get that right. There you go. So this is a new format. We promised episode 67. We promised a new format. So here we go. So background to that is we have done 67 episodes with at least 67 guests in the waste sector. But what we're trying to do, or what we're going to try and do, is we're going to try and go back to basics a little bit in terms of waste and how it all works. So this episode, we're actually going to look at the first stage on what we call the waste hierarchy, and it's all about not producing the waste in the first place. But first of all, in terms of the new format, we have got a new topic, Jane.
We have got a new topic, and the first thing, and this is to allow you, Alasdair, to vent your feelings on the waste industry and litter and anything else appropriate, is we're going to have a rubbish rant. So if you've listened to all our episodes, you'll know that Alasdair likes his rant. Everybody likes a rant, Alasdair in particular. So, Alasdair, what is your rant for today?
We're going to share the rants, Jane. We're going to share them.
Right,
So
okay.
we'll let you share. You'll get the occasional one. We'll get the occasional one. But mine is, we're actually recording this a little bit early, but many of you, the weekend just past there was extremely nice in Scotland. It was extremely sunny. And usual story, Monday morning, I walk along the beach to work, and Monday morning, the beach is covered in crap. Why on earth we cannot take our litter home, I have no idea. So that's my rant.
And you've got quite a few on the Rubbish Talk podcast, haven't you? And I was having a look, because obviously, I do like the seaside.
On our TikTok account, Jane.
Sorry, TikTok.
Our TikTok
sorry.
account.
I forgot you've kind of gone modern now, haven't you?
I'm still learning.
You're joining the young crew, Alasdair.
He is teaching me how to use it.
And there was a couple of TikToks there, and one was, I think, there was a number of glass bottles still on the beach, wasn't there?
You just look down. You look down from the wall, and you look at the litter there, and say, for goodness sake, it wouldn't take that much to, carry that up to the bin. There's bins there's a bin every 20 yards on the beach. And they specially put 4 glass bottles stuck in the beach. Now, you know what's going to happen. They're going to get smashed. There's going to be glass all over the beach. And then poor kids are going to get their feet cut.
Yeah.
It's just...
Yeah, people just don't think, do they? The consequences of what they do. And I think there was also one with the nice bin there and a load of rubbish left beside the bin because obviously the bin was either full or they couldn't be bothered to put it in. And what happens at the seaside? What are those big white birdie things that come and eat stuff?
So, as you say, there was one bin and somebody had quite well. They bagged up the litter, they brought it, the bin was full, or the bag probably never fitted in the bin because there's fancy bins down there with a foot pedal to open them and so on. And what the seagulls do is they peck through the plastic bag and then start dragging out the rubbish. And when you go along in the morning, all that rubbish that somebody has collected up is strewn every place. My thought to that is, if the bin's full, if it doesn't fit in the bin, take it home or take it to the next nearest bin, which might not be full. And in fairness to South Ayrshire Council have actually got a refuse collection crew doing litter bins all weekend. So they've actually got crew going up and down the coast from Troon down to Ballantrae doing all the beaches. But the reality is they can't be every place. So on a busy day, you will get bins that are full to overflowing. So, but I noticed Jane in social media was just Keep Scotland Beautiful had a post about it saying exactly the same thing. During that weekend, Loch Lomond was busy, all the country areas were busy, and all the country areas were absolutely rammed with either litter or people leaving waste beside bins rather than just taking it home. You've managed to carry, the bit that gets me is you managed to carry the stuff full to the beach or to the park. How on earth can you not, package it up and take it home?
Yeah, well, absolutely. And the thing is, it's going to be lighter on the way back, isn't it? Because your bottles are going to be empty.
It's all going to
be empty. It's not like you're carrying the weight back.
The thing is, well, if we're keeping on with my rant, if you go abroad, which I have been known to do, if you go to a beach in Spain, or you go to a beach in Greece or Croatia or whatever, the locals don't leave their litter on the beach. And most people in Scotland, they're going on a summer holiday, they go to these foreign beaches, to see people going to a beach, they don't discard all the litter behind them. Why do we do it in Scotland?
I don't know. We were talking about this previously about behavioural change, isn't it? Is you wouldn't leave that in your own front garden or your back garden, would you? You'd take it inside and put it in the bin.
Yeah.
But yeah, so is there a simple solution for this rant, Alasdair? Have
So
you got a
we've got a new rule. Our new rule for the podcast is every time we have a rant, we've got to come up with a positive solution. So the positive solution here, I would suggest, is you take your litter home with you and you recycle it properly in your bins at home.
Absolutely. You do see recycling bins sometimes in the streets, don't you? For on the go rubbish. You know, they're not always, the things don't get put in the right place. So the best thing to do is take it home.
There you go.
Totally.
That's our first rant of the. Well, we've had lots of rants in previous episodes, but that's our first one for this new format.
A very good rant, Alasdair. A very good rant.
And you'll get your turn next week, Jane. So this week we're going to look at how you can reduce the amount of waste you produce. So there's in the waste sector there's a thing called the waste hierarchy, and that's the principle by which everyone should use when looking after their waste. And my view is this is something that should be taught, almost taught at schools, and it used to be taught at schools. If you talk to anybody about waste, quite often what you'll get is, but I recycle. And it's always I recycle. But if you talk about the waste hierarchy, recycling is the third thing to do. Before, the two things that are better than that is reusing products, and even better than that is to actually not produce the waste in the first place. So Jane and I are going to have a bit of a deep dive into how we can go about not producing the waste in the first place. And in next week's episode, we will look at what we mean by reuse, whether we need to try and change behaviours about this. So we're going to talk about not producing waste in the first place.
Yeah, so you don't produce waste in the first place. That sounds quite, obvious.
It's easy.
Yeah, it's easy. But you've got so much consumerism, everybody's saying buy this, buy that, buy the other. So what do you mean by not producing it in the first place? So how would you do that? You particularly, Elsa, what would you do?
You need to be a tight Scotsman, Jane, and just not buy things, just not go into shops. But that's maybe easier said than done for some. So sort of examples, an obvious example I use quite commonly to people is as you know, but bringing it back to running as always, do quite a bit of running. You sign up for these races, and literally every race you get a free T-shirt. Now I have got a drawer full of T-shirts that will last me for the rest of my life. I don't need another free T-shirt. Okay, sometimes I do a big race and I want to get that T-shirt and it's an important T-shirt, etc., etc. But no, I don't need more T-shirts. So more and more races are now saying either saying they don't provide T-shirts, or they're giving you an option to plant a tree or donate some money to charity. I would rather, if I entered a race, I would rather donate money to charity, to the Mountain Rescue or whatever, than end up with another T-shirt that I'm probably not going to wear. So it's making that mindful choice of thinking, I don't actually need that.
What about the medals you get then? Because everybody gets a medal at the end.
The medals are even worse. I've got bags and bags of medals in my house that just don't. But there's some medals I quite like. I've got a few sitting behind me here, which you can't see. They're quite chunky and sentimental because they were big races. But there's other races you go to, you get this bit of plasticky metal that,
Yeah, you don't really need, do you, to be fair? But you feel you ought to because they've given it to you at the end.
Yeah.
And you've paid 20 quid or whatever it is to enter the race, and you feel you ought to take something out of it. But I like the thing about the T-shirts. Yeah. So we don't get any T-shirts. What else? Anything else?
Well, the other one is I think always thinking for parents, grandparents, particularly with young kids, and my kids were young. The amount of plastic tat that got bought, that would be emptied out of the box, scattered all over the house, and then the son or daughter would play with the cardboard box for the next 3 days. And the plastic tat just ended up eventually in the bin, and it's are we better? Looking, I know my mum, for all the grandchildren, would put money aside every birthday and every Christmas, and once they were 17, she would hand over the pay-in book with about £2,000 that she never specified, but always suggested that should go towards their driving lessons. So when they're
That's a good
17, they're getting
idea.
all their driving lessons paid for them. You know,
Actually, yeah.
and they never actually missed the plastic tat they never got from her.
But you get plastic tat everywhere, though, don't you? I mean, we were discussing McDonald's the other day, and you go into McDonald's, you get a Happy Meal, and you get a little bit of plastic toy, and that's part of the Happy Meal. But again, you only have it for like 10 minutes, and it breaks or something, and it goes in the bin. Perhaps we need to have a
We,
chat
sh-
with
we
some of
shouldn't
these
be we
big
shouldn't be giving
companies.
out we shouldn't be giving out a plastic tat with meals.
No, no. So I
Any
probably
ideas
got.
you had, Jane?
Well, I did because I was looking at some of the things we'd already discussed on our podcast, and there was the libraries, just general libraries. Actually going into a library and borrowing a book and giving it back. I mean, that's one of the oldest things about reducing the waste, because you're not buying a book. You're actually reducing what you well, basically you're not buying it in the first place because you're borrowing it from somewhere.
You
The
could
same
stretch
way.
you could stretch that further, Jane, and say just
Well, yeah, the
just
same
buy
with
buy
like.
buy a book in Kindle, and then you're not actually buying
Well,
the book.
well, yeah, I suppose you could
But I
do.
do I do like the feel of a book sometimes. So there's a balance.
But I think also libraries are always important as well, isn't it? And actually being able to go as a community involvement as well. And there's also the libraries, because we talked about the toy library the
Yep,
other week as well.
true.
And yeah, at Troon, where there's a toy library there where you can just borrow the buckets and spades rather than actually, buying your own. There's also that they also, and we also did talk about another tool library as well, though, where you can just borrow tools. And I think we looked at it, didn't we? You can borrow all sorts of tools. You can borrow tents and spades and all sorts of stuff where you can actually borrow things and take it back rather than actually having to buy it, use it once, and then throw it away.
Yeah. No, I was talking to my neighbour the other day, and just moved into a house, and they've got a big, not a big hedge, but a fairly big hedge, and she was out with the manual clippers, and she was like, "Oh,
Oh,
I'm gonna need to get myself an electric chainsaw," and I'm like, "You're going to buy an electric chainsaw that you're going to use twice a year. If there's a good tool library, you go down, borrow the hedge trimmer, use it for what you need, and then take it back." I think we're in the past we would probably borrowed from our neighbours more and done more of that stuff, but I think we've got out that way. We think we need to possess everything. The other obvious one I think is just being a bit more mindful about what you purchase. I'm the world's worst for deciding I need something, going away and buying it, and then having a wee check in a cupboard and finding two or three of them already purchased. So, just being a bit more careful about what we actually purchase. And if you have got stuff in the house, using it up rather than, going and buying new.
yeah. And there's always that, what do people use the most and what do they buy the most? And I suppose you've got food, you've also got clothing. £7 billion worth of clothing is returned to retails each year. So somebody buys it, doesn't like it, tries it on, or even goes out that night, comes back and takes it back to the retailer. So, if you didn't want it, why would you buy it in the first place? I think
Think of
this,
the cost of that, Jane, just in
yeah,
the sheer cost and the carbon impact of all that transport. Because they're saying they estimate a quarter of all clothing is sent back.
yeah, yeah.
Mad.
And I think as well is like, it's looking in your wardrobe. I was looking in my wardrobe the other week and thought, blimey, I forgot I had that. And I don't buy that many clothes, to be fair. But I was looking at it, I was looking at it thinking I can wear that. So it was quite exciting actually. I
But
felt like I could
then,
find some new clothes.
do you do what I find doing? You look at it and you think I could wear that. You put it at the top of the pile, and a year later you go back in the drawer and you've still not worn it.
No, I do. Although I put it on and think, I put on a bit of weight since I wore this last time. The other one that got me thinking as well, right, is Charlie Devine was talking about him. I can't remember which episode it was actually, but he was talking about, and this is the same with everything, buy one, get one free. And he was particularly talking about pineapples. And he said they had this big thing in Tesco's or whatever it was on buy one, get one free on pineapples. So instead of thinking, do I really need two pineapples? You think, brilliant. I get 2 for the price of 1. Do I need it? Doesn't matter. I've got 2 for the price of 1. So you get home, you use 1 pineapple and the other pineapple goes in the bin. And what he was saying, there's the waste transfer station where they had all the food there for the food waste, and there was all these like pineapples bouncing all the way around the waste transfer station. I just thought it was hilarious, but also it's quite sad that just because they had this offer, people feel the need to, buy these things and not use them.
Episode 16 was Charlie Devine there.
Gosh, that was quite a
Long
while
and
ago,
distant
actually.
past for that one.
It
So
was. I still remember that. Gosh,
absolutely, anybody wants to listen to that. But I suppose that is the thing with food. Food is been again planning what you need to eat. There's nothing worse than you do a supermarket shop and then you realise you're going to be out for the next 3 days and you're not going to eat the food. So it's just been more methodical about that plan. And that's what I reckon. If people recycle or use their food waste bin for the food waste, what they estimate is that they save something like £400 a year in food waste because it's going into a container and it's really obvious rather than just in their bin. They actually suddenly realise how much food they're throwing out, and they actually reduce the amount of food waste they produce.
Yeah, I really think there's so much food waste that could not buy because you don't eat it. So yeah.
Try my best. And the last one I had, Jane, was waste-free packed lunch. I'm quite big in my packing my salad in a Tupperware box, but that is probably verging on to reusing of items. So we'll maybe save that for next week's episode.
Mm-hmm.
So that was our dive into how not to produce waste in the first place. Anybody's got any ideas, any thoughts, any challenges, feel free to reach out at hello@rubbishtalk.co.uk, or you may notice on our TikTok feed we're promoting a wee bit of different ideas and so on. So quite happy for people to feed in. And the challenge for you, the listeners, is to have a wee think of when you're about to press that order on Amazon, which is all far too easy once you've got your details in, is just think, hang on a minute, do I actually really need it? Do I have 10 of them lurking in a cupboard already? And should I use up these 10 before I purchase a new one? So
yeah, or actually have a look in your cupboard in the first place and see whether you've got them in the first place, because that's what I kind of need to do. It's amazing the things you find at the back of your cupboards.
I actually think in terms of toiletries in my house, I think I could probably live for a good few years. In fact, probably tens of years without buying another shampoo bottle or product with amount that's lying about.
I was just going to say, is that because you don't wash your hair?
I don't wash very often either. But
well, it's like that. That's another, going back onto this topic of not producing it in the first place. When you go to the hotels and they give you all these nice little conditioner and shampoo and whatever, and you feel, I'll just take those because you never know when they come in handy. And 10 years down the line, there you go, you've still got them and you've never used them, and it's you're only taking them because they're there and because you can. But
you're better from a sustainability point of view. You're better to use them, Jane.
Well, I think a lot you're
either better to leave them untouched and then they'll go to the next guest, or if you have started using it, then you're better to use it.
I know, but a lot of them these days, though, they've got those reusable containers, haven't they, in the showers and in the hotels.
That's us verging on to the reuse topic of the Waste Hierarchy, which is next week's episode, Jane.
Okay, sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. Looking forward to next week, Alasdair.
Absolutely.
So, as part of our new format as well, we've had our Rubbish Rant, we've had our discussion on our waste hierarchy, and now we've got some news. So, we've been looking at different news topics every week and what's in the news and all this sort of stuff. But the big news I have this week is Alasdair, apparently, he was telling us, has his first McDonald's in 10 years. I mean, I think that's worth a round of applause. Not sure why he had his first McDonald's in the last 10 years, but I'm sure he'll tell you all about it. Not that this is the rant. No, we've done the rant. Well, this is just information.
It might be a rant. Information exercise here. So yes, I had my first McDonald's, so whether it is actually 10 years or not, but for a very long time anyway.
What did you have, Alasdair? What was in your meal?
I had a McChicken sandwich, chips, I had a coffee, and I had a milkshake.
Coffee and a milkshake.
And that was the reason I was drawn in, because I'd just done a hill race on a really warm day. I was driving back up the road and I was really hungry, and I just fancied a milkshake, to be honest. Milkshakes.
So you bought the rest of it just to get a milkshake.
I felt obliged to buy a bit more, so I did have a hour and a half journey up the road. But what sort of amazed me, it didn't amaze me, I know this, but it just, as I walked in, it'd been a sunny day. The bins at McDonald's were absolutely overflowing, every single bin. There was some poor guy out trying to clear them. But then when I got my food, it was just like, how much packaging have I got from the one meal? So I actually brought it home, and I did do a wee TikTok video, and I laid it all out, and I worked out what was what. So my chips were in a wee cardboard poke, so that was fine. That could go in the cardboard bin. I had a wee tray because I bought 2 drinks. I had a wee cardboard tray, that could go in the bin. I had my chicken burger had a wee cardboard tray, so that was cardboard. I then had a paper straw, which, to be honest, hardly lasted to drink the milkshake. So I do sort of agree with Donald Trump that paper straws are pretty crap.
Yeah.
We need to invent a better paper straw somehow. And then I had a couple of napkins. And then, although I ticked the thing to say no bag, I got a bag as well. So what I did, being the sad person I am, is I brought it all into the office and I actually weighed it. And you know how much that all weighed, Jane?
No, go on.
93 grams.
93
so
grams.
93 grams of packages.
Okay.
So then I thought, how many McDonald's are sold in the UK every year?
So you did a bit of research?
According to Mr. Google, which might be totally wrong, it's estimated to 1.4 billion McDonald's per annum. So doing the sums and making sure I get the percentage points in the right place to move this up to tonnes, that equates to 130,000 tonnes of waste just from McDonald's every year. Can you imagine that if you add in KFC, Burger King, all these fast food places? Between them, you'll easily be millions of tonnes of waste.
That relates to millions of tonnes of disposal costs.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you take a landfill waste energy cost of maybe £160, which is probably where they're sitting at the moment, that equates to £21 million in disposal costs just from McDonald's in the UK.
Wow, that's a lot of money. So where's that going to end up then? I mean, obviously you took it all home and put it in your recycling bins because, you know, that's what you do.
I've not actually. It's actually still sitting in the corner of the office.
Lovely.
So I still need to put it in the recycling bin.
So does it go? It's not good. You know, most people, to be fair, are not going to take it home and recycle it, are they? Most people are going to chuck it in the bin.
Well, I suppose the stuff at McDonald's, that'll be taken away by a private contractor. I would think that's highly unlikely to be recycled. That's all going waste energy or landfill, I would think. Where's it going to go? It's this guy that's going to go in public litter bins, or quite often it's littered. So that'll be collected by the council. Again, that'll not be going for recycling. That'll be going for waste energy or landfill. And then probably a relatively small percentage will actually take the stuff home and recycle. And in fairness to McDonald's, the only two things that couldn't be recycled was that the cup that had the milkshake was plastic cup, and then the coffee cup did actually have a cardboard surround that you could have peeled off and put in the cardboard recycling, but the actual cup had plastic in it, so that would have been in residual waste. So in fairness, out of the 93 grams, I did mean to measure what was not recyclable, but it's probably only about 20 grams. But the reality is, in theory, it can all be recycled, but in practice, the vast majority of it won't be, which is the challenge, isn't it? And then I suppose the other thing was I specifically clicked the button to say no bag, but they're obviously in such a production line in McDonald's, they just automatically give you a bag. So you get a big cardboard bag or big paper bag. And then what I could not work out how to do, and some of the listeners might understand how to do this, but they might be better than me that use McDonald's more, is I couldn't work out how to order and get it in a reusable cup, because I did actually have my reusable cup with me. So I didn't need a disposable cup, but I couldn't work out how to order the machine to do that.
That's not in their business model though, is it? I don't suppose. because if that was the case, then you'd have to give in your cup. Somebody would have to fill it and give it you back,
Well, that's what
and that would take
that's
longer.
that's what I was trying to work out.
How do you
There's a
do
challenge. There's a challenge for McDonald's to.
that?
You should be able to do that.
Okay. Well,
Maybe
you
you
should be able
can
to
do.
do it anyway.
Maybe we're talking out of turn. If you can do that in McDonald's, or you can do that in any of the ones, let us, all these listeners out there that are more experienced at this than me, let me know. It's a while since I've been in a McDonald's. So.
Really? Well, I tell
go.
you, did you do the drive-through or did you go in?
You know what? I hate drive-throughs. Even if I go for a coffee in a place, I will not go to a drive-through. But I would rather get out of my car and walk in and order it and walk back out the door. I just think this sitting in your arse, not doing anything. Half the time you go to a place, you've been driving for an hour. Why would you not want to get out of your car and stretch your legs?
What I find is if you go in, now they've got all these big things that you have to press loads of buttons and say what you want, don't you? And at least when you go in, when you press the wrong button and you have to go back and whatever, you don't look like such a dipstick. Whereas if you're there in your car and there's like loads of people behind you, you're like, just give me anything. I don't care. I'll just press a button. Just give me something.
Well, that is actually...
That's quite stressful, to be fair.
Yeah, no, that is also why I don't go to drive-throughs, because half the time I don't go to these places often enough and I have no clue what I want to order. So I've got to stand there for half an hour trying to work it out. There we go.
Yeah.
So that was a big rubbish talk news. Jane,
Well,
we normally, on this podcast, we normally go through, try and pick some topical things that are happening. So you've spotted one, Jane, I think, from...
Well, I have. We had this through from a listener. Not only is he a listener, he's a
member of staff as well, I believe.
I wasn't going to say that. He's a member of staff, and he's Dutch. So he sent this through from the Netherlands, and what they've developed is the world's first self-sorting microplastic trap for rivers using only water flow physics. Now that was a mouthful to say, to be fair. So what does that mean? Well, it sounds like what they've got is things in the river. And it's talked about using precisely shaped underwater veins placed across riverbeds and banks. And actually what it does, in simple terms, it mimics the way fish gills sort particles. So it leaves silt and organic matter pass through, so those can pass through, and it funnels the plastics into a collection channel. So any plastics, it takes them out and then it retrieves them. And it says... a skimmer boat retrieves and offloads the material daily. And they've said that over a 10-month trial, the system has captured over 82% of floating plastic waste, including fragments invisible to the naked eye, all without a power source or moving parts. So I tell you, that is pretty impressive.
Sounds
I mean, the fact
impressive.
that the plastic's in there in the first place is a bit sad, but, that's going to happen. But the fact that they can do all this... and it says they can get plastic particles, microparticles under 5 millimeter size. So, yeah. So there's a link to I think it was on LinkedIn, and there's some pictures on there as well of a nice clean river with no plastics in it anymore. Which
it sounds amazing to manage to do it just with water flow and so on. That is quite incredible. That's quite incredible. But in saying that, a microplastic down to 5 mils, not particularly small. In terms of microplastics, microplastics are down to nanometers sort of thing. But maybe that's an episode for future, Jane, talking about microplastics, because that's a huge, massive
do you remember
issue.
when we had a girl on talking about Erin? I think it was Erin talking about microplastics quite a while back, and
she lived in a canal boat.
Yeah, some of the things she was saying about the microplastics and where they were quite scary. And after that, I've been looking at water in a bit of a different way.
Erin Brown, episode 20.
Yeah,
there you go.
She was dead interesting.
Any listeners want to have a deep dive into microplastics? That's the one to have a listen to.
Certainly is.
And then the other thing that's in the news, continuing to be in the news, is the forthcoming landfill ban in Scotland every so often. So this is a story that from the 1st of January 2026, we will no longer be allowed to put biodegradable waste to landfill sites in Scotland. And that means that all that waste that used to go to landfill will now go to waste energy. But the challenge is going forward that we don't currently have enough waste energy plants in Scotland. So there's been various reports. One way to avoid this for companies, gradually, I think the waste industry is fully well aware of it, but I think the wider industry is not that well aware of it. But just a wee reminder for people out there. So there's a thing called the Waste Scotland Regulations 2012, and that required every business to separate out the recyclate. So that's your paper, your cardboard, your plastic, your metal, and also your food waste stream if you do any catering. And that's a legal requirement you've got to do. Now, if you go around businesses, lots of businesses aren't doing that particularly well. But if you're worried about the landfill ban, that's one way you can really cut down the amount of what we would call residual waste, whatever waste is left. And that residual waste will come under the ban. So why has it been big news, Jane? What's the story here? Why is the UK press picked up on this one?
Well, do you know what? It's interesting actually because it had been quite under the radar for quite a long time, and then it's because the main reason is because we don't have enough burning capacity, energy from waste plants in Scotland to burn all the waste that is going to need to be burnt. So all that waste is going to need a home. So, instead of driving around all the incinerators, energy from waste plants in Scotland, it's going to be going south of the border or exported. And you did a very nice piece on the news. Was it Disclosure Scotland? And then again in the radio.
It was Disclosures, yes.
Yes.
If you look back in Rubbish News, you'll find the links. It's still rumbling away. Somebody told me the Jeremy Vine show was talking about why Scotland was going to send all their waste to England the other day. So, yeah.
There we go.
I suppose some of the news we've talked about recently is this what we call a capacity gap. So this is a gap between what space we've got in incinerators in Scotland. So there's various figures that bandies around between 300,000 tonne and 700,000 tonne. We're not quite sure where exactly it sits, but there's still a gap. But recently we've had the site of Leavensea went into the waste energy plant. They went into receivership. So that was a site that handled probably about 150,000 tonne. Last week's episode, we talked about the waste energy plant at Aberdeen that's operated by a company called Indavar. And because of a contractual dispute, they pulled off the site. So they're no longer accepting waste. And again, that was about 100,000 tonne. So potentially we're running into a problem come the 1st of January. And then there was news the other day. So you've got two sides of this. We've got a capacity gap with the waste energy, but we've also got a situation where there are less and less landfill sites in Scotland. And one of the main ones at Linlithgow in central Scotland, it is looking in a bad way, that the company's not in a healthy position, and there was a sort of credit letter put out the other day about them. So potentially that's one of the main landfill sites in Scotland potentially closing. So
yeah, we're going to have a bit of an issue, aren't we? And what was it? Was it 90 odd trucks every day going from Scotland down to potentially down to England?
Potentially that's what it'll be. Yeah.
So we haven't got enough trucks and we haven't got enough drivers. So, if anybody's looking for a job, perhaps being a truck driver might be a good idea come 1st of January 2026. What do you think, Alasdair?
Yeah. Well, they've probably not got the trucks to do it, so it'll not happen.
I don't think I'm going to be sticking in the back of my car, I tell you.
Yeah, but going back to whether we've got a landfill ban or not, we will still need landfills because there's still waste that needs to go to landfill. And we're only talking about, I did try to do a quick tally and I probably missed one, but we've got a landfill site at Glasgow, one at Greengayers, Avondale one I just mentioned at Linlithgow, there's one at Dunbar, there's one north of Aberdeen, and there's one in Fife, and there's one at Fort William. And I think that's pretty much it for the whole of Scotland. So we're going to, it's not great. And are these sites going to invest in opening new areas and building new cells if we've got a landfill ban, potentially not get much waste? So maybe this is a topic we can have a bit of a deeper dive and sort of explain the background of why the landfill ban and what we're trying to do and so on, Jane, that might be a good topic.
Yeah, we could do that. What we could just do is, or we could just do the video of the disclosure of you doing, yeah.
Just put that out, save us having to talk about it.
That's right.
We can add a bit of. That was
totally.
all highly edited, Jane. That was
The flow of waste never stops.
the rivers of waste.
Rivers of waste.
Rivers of waste. And the magic bin fairy.
Absolutely. So yeah, that's a good idea. So what's the plan next episode?
So we're following on from the first one we did today was on how not to produce waste in the first place. So next week we're going to go in the next step of the waste hierarchy and we're going to talk about reuse. So that's the plan.
Yeah. So we're what we were looking for as well is some feedback. What do you think about our new format? Do you like it? Me and Alasdair, we're going to chit chat about waste. Would you like to join us? And join us by feedback on hello@Rubbish Talk. Connect us on our Rubbish Talk podcast on TikTok, because we'd like you to join in the waste debate or the waste rant. If anybody's got a rant, quite happy taking suggestions for rants, aren't we, Alistair?
I think also we're looking for things that people just don't sort of understand. It doesn't make sense to them. Because I think there are things in the waste sector that people don't quite understand about why you can and can't do various things.
I think we don't understand it sometimes either. It just is what it is.
Absolutely, but I suppose it's back to it. We started this episode with a rant about the beach and litter bins, and every time you see a post about litter being left behind, every time somebody will comment, "There's not enough bins," or "They're not emptied enough." But the reality is, from a practical point of view, the council can't be every place to empty every bin. And the reality is, 300 days a year, these bins sit empty. So, it's not practical to empty these bins on a really high level just because one day or one Saturday we get a sunny day. It's back to what our solution was. If the bin's full, take your stuff home.
Moral of the story,
home.
Take your rubbish home.
There you go. So that's us. Episode 68. See you next week.